Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how is it going?
It is going great. We are going to Indianapolis, not right now, but Friday. And that is, how weird is this year? We are deeply excited to be going to Indianapolis. That's pretty exciting. It's pretty big.
I'm happy to be going anywhere, frankly. The only places I go really are upstairs and downstairs. So this is going to be nice. I get to go west. And I don't need to go too far west. Far enough west. 3 hours, that's all I need. Just a little breather.
Yeah, I don't know that I've been west of 270 at any point since March. This is like we're getting to the point where if we wait much longer, where they're going to change all the maps to just here be monsters out past about like London, Ohio, just like I don't know, Sasquatches. I don't know.
No, those are actually towards Athens and like Salt Fork.
Okay,
that's where you're going to run into those. But there are some here in Central Ohio as well. You just got to be careful, and you live out in the country, so you would know that.
Yes. But we're on the east side, so we have Yetis, not Sasquatches.
Correct. Yes. Then the Grassman is in Salt Fork, so you don't want to offend by using the wrong verbiage. So Tom, I don't really know what else to talk about today other than Bigfoot. Now you got me on it, so let's just dive into this now. It is Big Ten championship game weekend. Ohio State, Northwestern. Let's just do a little preview because I don't know that there's need for a lot of preview. Ohio State is 20-point favorite. I was asked today, how can Northwestern win this? And well, yeah, you need 3 or 4 turnovers from Ohio State. COVID outbreak.
And don't joke.
No, I'm not joking. No, that's a serious thing. And perfection from Northwestern's passing game, I guess. It just big plays on offense, big plays on defense, and an undermanned Ohio State team. And then maybe like a 7-point win for Northwestern, but I don't see all of that happening.
Yeah, they have to hit a couple big plays on offense. I don't think they're going to be able to methodically drive down the field against Ohio State over and over again. So you got to hit a big play. Maybe you block a punt, return a fumble for a touchdown, one of those deals. This is one, just whatever the opposite of exciting, explosive offense is, that's what Northwestern is this year. They're not as bad as they were last year. It's just when they win 21-7. And it's not, and when they lose 29-21. It's just, they've scored more than 30 points once this year. That was in the season opener at Maryland. And then since then, they have not broken more than 28, I believe. They scored 28 last weekend against mighty Illinois in a just terrible Lake Michigan game. But they're fine. They are exactly like every Northwestern team you ever remember. They're the good version of the Northwestern team that you remember from literally every year, where sometimes they have a pretty good defense and an absolutely atrocious offense. Sometimes they have a very good defense and a slightly less atrocious offense. This is one of those years where it's the latter. And, they are just good enough to make this game not look super impressive for Ohio State if they play well.
Yeah, and when you're looking at explosive plays, Northwestern has 2 plays of 40 yards or more on offense from scrimmage this year. Ohio State and Michigan State lead the Big Ten with 9 such plays. Although I think 5 of Michigan State's came against Michigan, so does it really count? No, it doesn't really count. So that's the lack of explosion is really why I don't think Northwestern. Yes, they can win this game. I don't think they will because the lack of explosion on offense. You have to outscore Ohio State, and that's not really Northwestern's game. And I don't know how they hold Ohio State to like 24 or 20. I don't even know that they could score. Northwestern could score over 28 in this game, and so then they have to keep Ohio State at like 27. And okay, you better step up in the red zone to do that then, and force some field goals. Maybe get a couple of missed field goals in there from Ohio State. But yeah, that would be like the score that I would see Northwestern winning like 28-27, 28-24, where Ohio State just misses a whole bunch of opportunities. And, goal line stand for Northwestern, just some missed scoring opportunities that they didn't capitalize on. The Buckeyes didn't capitalize on because I think they're going to move the ball.
Yeah, I don't see Ohio State having a ton of trouble moving the ball. This is something I talked to Ross Fulton about on the Thursday morning edition of the Morning Scoop. And he talked about kind of what Northwestern's defense does and what that opens up for the offense. And they are very much the play a couple deep safeties, keep everything in front of you, make the other team complete, pick up 6-7 first downs in order to score. Like you're not going to have a bunch of 70-yard touchdowns against Northwestern. You're going to have a bunch of 8-play drives for touchdowns if you're going to score touchdowns. And the secret to Northwestern success is there are a whole bunch of quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year that are hot garbage and can't act. I was about to use Rocky Lombardi as an example, but they lost to Michigan State. So not a great example.
Lombardi.
Yes. Yes, that's what we call the boy. I wish I could remember Illinois' quarterback who transferred from Michigan, what his name is right now.
Brandon Peters.
Yes, that is the Brandon Peters zone. And that is where Northwestern has been making its hay this year, the Brandon Peters zone, where the quarterback is not accurate enough to be able to make those throws consistently enough to keep those chains moving and move down the field. That is not typically an area where Justin Fields has a lot of trouble. And one of the areas that Ross talked about on the Morning Scoop was the way Northwestern plays its defense. You can hit a lot of those just kind of like 10-yard outs. Like Ohio State just ate their lunch last year with a bunch of 10-yard outs and 15-yard outs when they played up in Evanston. And if that's open again, like Justin Fields can just make those throws all day long. And then, at that point, Northwestern may have to get a little more aggressive. You start jumping on those out routes. Maybe you get a pick six, or maybe Ohio State runs a double move, and then you do get the 70-yard touchdown. So, it's a matter of whether Northwestern wants to die the death of 1,000 cuts, or potentially go for a higher risk, higher reward thing.
And we've talked about that before with the Buckeyes, and I forget which defense they were facing, that, they try to keep everything in front of you and they're patient. It's like, well, yeah, that suits Justin Fields just fine. We see those out routes and those comebacks all the time, and he's really good with it. He probably connects on, 90% of them, completion percentage. There's not a lot of misses there. And so if Northwestern wants to keep stuff in front, that's fine. But they will also do some things that the Ohio State offense will do some things to get Northwestern in some bad spots, because they're going to take shots. You have the perfect wind conditions inside, so you've got a good quarterback who has the arm. You're going to take some shots downfield because that's what they want to do when you got the receivers and the quarterback and the pass blocking to do that. Why not? I know Northwestern's rush defense is outstanding, and it's all really good in your fancy analytics, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like the quarterbacks, they haven't faced a ton of great running game. Did they face Minnesota this year, or is that one of the 16 games that Minnesota had canceled? Because I'm wondering if they faced that running game. But and I don't know that they did. I could look, but this is one of those things where maybe won't be super easy for Ohio State to run the ball, but I think it'll be okay. And no, they did not play Minnesota this year, and they gave up 224 yards to Nebraska on the ground, 195 to Michigan State, 155 to Illinois. So I would think that Ohio State could be able to do some of that stuff. And if they are also able to throw the ball, then you're into the same problem that everybody else is. And that's when Fitz this week, when I think I mentioned this in the last show, when somebody was like, hey, well, how do you stop the run when they're going to be able to throw the ball? And then when they're throwing the ball, how do you, what are you going to do? And he's like, yeah, thanks. I hate you. Go. Just get away from me. Don't ever talk to me again. And that's the problem that he's going to have. And yes, they did hold Maryland to 64 yards rushing. And yes, they did hold Iowa to 77 yards rushing. And yes, Tom, they even held Purdue to 2 yards rushing. But if you give up 195 yards rushing to Michigan State, sir, I can't take you seriously.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit of a red flag for them. And again, this is once again me cribbing my conversations with Ross to sound intelligent on other podcasts. But one of the things that Northwestern does is they will read the inside receiver, so the second receiver in from the end of the line. So, a lot of cases that's like Garrett Wilson, or it's if it's the tight end on the other side of the formation. If that guy is run blocking, then the safety and maybe one of those outside backers is going to come crashing down pretty hard to stop, to be a factor in that run game. So you have these guys set pretty far back in order to kind of keep everything in front of them. But as soon as they see any kind of hint of run, they come crashing down. That's why they're so good against the run. They're able to get in the box. They're able to have like potentially 9 guys in the box a lot of times. So that is one of the secrets of their success. But, again, that's something that Ohio State was able to kind of mess with last year. They Northwestern has rules about how they do things. And that's why this defense looks kind of the same every year. But if you know what those rules are, you can kind of mess with them a little bit. There was a great play that Ross wrote about this week where Ohio State took one of the things that Northwestern does with their safeties is, the inside safety will take the safety will take the inside receiver if he's kind of looks like he's going vertical. So they had the inside receiver for Ohio State. Ross does so much of a better job explaining this than I do. That's okay. The safety comes down on the inside receiver, who was, I think, Jeremy Ruckert in this case. And so then he has vacated the deep middle of the field, and Chris Olave starts running across like it doesn't look like it's going to be a deep route. He just starts running across, and then all of a sudden takes off straight up field and scores an easy touchdown. So, there are ways to take advantage of what Northwestern does. This is every defense has things it's good at. Every defense has things it's bad at. You just have to, if you can figure out what they're going to be in, you can take advantage of it. I think Ohio State will find a way to take advantage of it and hit a couple big plays. They don't need to hit a ton of big plays because I don't think Northwestern's scoring that many points. Northwestern has not, they've scored, like I said, 30 points once this year. No one has broken 30 points against Northwestern all season. I think there's a pretty good chance Ohio State breaks 30 points against Northwestern on Saturday. And if they do, basically there's no way they lose.
Interesting to me is Northwestern, their terrible offense last year, scored in the 30s twice, which is twice as much as this current edition of the Wildcats. Granted, no, they haven't played as many games, but the Northwestern spell last year, where it was 10 points, 15 points, 10 points, 3 points, 0 points, 3 points was an all-timer. Probably back to the Dennis Green era of Northwestern. But, last year the Buckeyes, 279 yards rushing, 201 yards passing against Northwestern, averaging 7.6 yards per play, and just doing whatever they wanted and didn't have to do too much throwing. And I don't know. Maybe we'll see what they do in terms of how much throwing the ball they do. It will depend on how well they run it, obviously. But you've got perfect conditions. And I wouldn't be surprised if they attack them through the air initially and just see what happens. And then you got the offensive line back, so that will be, well, we assume they do. Brian Day said he hopes everybody's back this week in terms of the offensive line. So I do wonder if there's a little bit of a slow start for the offensive line, maybe just shaking off a little bit of that rust, because these are guys who have been out for a while. And so, they only missed one game, but they've been out for a while. So that'll be something to watch. And maybe Tom, maybe you keep Max Ray and DeJuan Jones in there instead of Thayer Munford and Nicholas Petit-Frere. What do you think?
I think that is something that theoretically could happen. Yes. This is one of these, like, in the millions of, infinite numbers of universes, there is a universe where Max Ray and DeJuan Jones are the starting tackles for Ohio State. I do not think it is the one that we are currently living in. So probably not, but you never know.
The quarterbacking last year with Hunter Johnson was terrible, and it's better this year with Peyton Ramsey. But I mean, Peyton Ramsey isn't Michael Penix. He isn't, maybe he's like one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year, but that's more of a statement about the Big Ten. And yes, Peyton Ramsey is a winner, and he can do this and he can do that, but he's not the most consistent guy, and he doesn't necessarily threaten you down the field. Not that Northwestern really has that. they got a bunch of running backs. They threw in a couple of freshmen last week, and they both went over 140 yards. So that'll be something to watch. But I just don't. There's just so little firepower here that they have to play a perfect game, and Ohio State's going to make it really, really hard for them to do that, offensively and defensively. I was asked for my score today. It was the first I thought about it, and I don't like being on the spot, so I'll let you think about your score here for a minute, and then I'll let you know.
I've already set my pick.
Okay,
so
you did? Okay,
yes.
Tell me. Wait, let me just remember what I said. Okay, I remember what I said. What do you got?
I'm sure it's within 3 points of mine because that's how this always works.
I'll write it down.
I picked Ohio State 38, Northwestern 20. 38-10. Close. Yeah. I mean, and that's like holding Ohio State to 38 is a pretty solid performance, especially on a dry, fast track like this. And, I mean, I got to 20 and 38-10 is entirely reasonable. I feel like every time Ohio State plays Northwestern, I'm like, they don't have any guys who are going to score in this Ohio State defense.
Go down.
And then there's just like one drive a half. And then there's another one where they kick a field goal and all of a sudden it's like 17 points. It's like, how'd they go from 0 to 17 without me seeing anything? Like, yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. 38-10 feels right. 38-20 is me just going, I've seen this movie before.
Big Ten championship game. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and this is just not a team you're going to blow out, really. Like, this is not, I mean, I say that as if Ohio State did not win by 49 points at their stadium last year, but this year's Northwestern is not last year's Northwestern. This year's Northwestern is not a team you're going to blow out. Like, you can absolutely annihilate them on both sides of the ball and win by like 15 points. Like, that's true. It's like punching Jello, just like with nothing.
Like Dredrick Tatum against Homer Simpson.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if Northwestern comes out to why can't we be friends? Like, I am taking the points. Get on that. I think sports betting is legal in Indiana. Get on that app and take those points.
So that's the Big Ten championship game, and we will talk more about it tomorrow night in Indianapolis, unless it's too freaking cold outside.
Yeah, we are planning on being to Indianapolis kind of early evening tomorrow. We'll probably the plan, and we'll see how the plan. We'll see whether this is one of these. The plan never survives first contact with the enemy, but the plan is that we'll go downtown and shoot a little pregame Facebook Live at not Facebook Live, YouTube Live at Lucas Oil Stadium or somewhere around there. That is kind of recognizably Indianapolis, answer all your questions. So just keep an eye on that. We'll tweet that out. But you can also check that out at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop is where that will be streamed eventually.
What else would be recognizably Indianapolis, like the Motor Speedway?
There's that big tower thing that they have the circle around and it's all covered in Christmas lights.
I believe that is Seattle.
No. There's actually more than one tower. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Yes. There's a big tall thing in the middle of a circle. That's an Indianapolis thing.
Okay, if you say so, Tom.
This is how knowledgeable I am when we typically don't stay downtown. So it's it's a thing. It's near the football stadium with the I know the parking lot we park in real well. I know exactly where we're going. We're walking into the stadium. Like, yeah, if anyone asks, hey, have you ever been to this place? It's like, is that near the media parking for the football game? I know where that is.
Yeah, I'm not a downtown person. Parking is an issue. I like parking lots. I don't like searching for street parking. But yes, that is about, and it's so easy. That's why I like Indianapolis. It's easy to get in to the stadium, easy to get out and onto the highway, and that's why it's America's greatest sports city, next to Toledo, the Glass Bowl, and the Mud Hens.
Mm-hmm. Third field.
And the Toledo hockey team used to be called the Storm. But anyway, Tom.
Gold Diggers, I believe. Or
that was before the Storm.
They're the Walleye now.
They're the Walleye, yes. So there you go. And we could talk about all Ohio sports if you want, except for the Cincinnati Reds. Because you can only talk about the Reds from like March to May. And then the season is over. That's how that goes. Like the Mets. Look at you.
Not anymore, baby. New owner, new era.
It's a time for
coming for vengeance. The checkbook is out. Coming for vengeance in 2021. But there's time to talk about that later.
Yes, the Mets revenge tour. I wonder how it's going to go.
They don't have Ohio State on the schedule. It'll be fine.
So I wrote on Thursday about the Big Ten's 21-day COVID rule and how it might behoove them to fix the rule, change the rule to better represent the CDC guidelines, which right now is recommending 10 days of quarantine and I think maybe like 14 for if you've been in contact with somebody. They don't want you going out and about until you've cleared that. And so and also the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12 are all 10 days instead of 21 days. The SEC is 10 days plus the 4 days of just reacclimating to the ability to exercise and get into practice, like the 30 to 50 to 70% ramp up to a full 100% practice. And so Ohio State or the Big Ten is now, it's been 21 days since that was the original rule. We know the Big Ten has already changed one rule for Ohio State, quote unquote, for Ohio State. Although I would say it is for common sense that they changed that initial rule to allow Ohio State into the Big Ten championship game. And now, Tom, is it time for them to change another rule? And the thing to keep in mind is, it wouldn't just be changing football. They would have to change it, apply it to all sports. So it's not just this little, yes, okay, Ohio State, we only need you to be out 10 days if you have any positives. And then everybody else, basketball and everything else is still 21 days. You can't really do that because it's about the kids and it's about safety. And so it can't be safe for the football players and unsafe for the basketball players. And of course, the reason we mention this is because the college football playoffs has said that they'll just go, their protocols will be whatever the conference protocols are for each team, which is the basis of my story today, being that there's different protocols and Ohio State's footing wouldn't be the same as everybody else should they have some positive tests in the next, few days or back a week.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing is everyone else is under one set of rules, and then the Big Ten team is under a completely different set of rules. It's like, okay, everyone is going to come into this fight, except for you. You have to have one arm tied behind your back. Like, why? Well, for safety. Like, okay, I mean, why is it not safe for me if it's safe for everybody else here? It's like, well, that's what we decided a while ago, and so that's what we're sticking with. And I mean, I really genuinely respect the fact that they really want to make sure everyone's safe. I don't understand the disconnect in the medical community here. Like, everyone else decided it was safe to play football during the summer, and the Big Ten decided, no, it is not safe to play football during the summer. We will play football in the winter. How's that working out for you? You can, I think if it was safe to play football in the summer, it was safe for everyone to play football in the summer. This was not something that was limited to one particular area of the country. Like, either it was safe or it wasn't safe. And this is the same thing. Like, if it's safe for players in one conference or literally every other conference to be able to come back after 14 days, and that their medical professionals are presumably also not interested in having a bunch of kids die. So, presumably that is something that is backed with some medical science. I'm not sure why the Big Ten would not be under the same medical science. I don't quite get that. And I mean, this may be one of these like reasonable people can disagree at times, but it seems like the Big Ten has been like way, way, way on the overly cautious side with everything. And I'm sure they would portray that as because they're trying to be extra careful. I mean, sure, maybe, but it's very hard to square the idea that people need to be under different sets of rules. Like this seems very much like college football playoff should just say, here's the policy, here's the rule, everyone's on the same, if the Big Ten changed its steroid rule, would that be okay? It's okay. The Ohio State, the Big Ten team can take all the steroids they want. We're just under a different rule. It's just we have a different interpretation. Like, that wouldn't be right. Like, that wouldn't be an equitable playing field. I don't understand why this is and why the College Football Playoff Committee thinks that like, yeah, everyone just do whatever you want. Like it's fine, no problem. And my assumption is because if they make the decision themselves and there's an issue, then it's their fault. And this is a liability thing, which I think a lot of this year has been a liability thing. But it's still like, if we're going to play a championship, let's play a championship with all the teams playing under the same group of rules.
There's the Ohio State basketball game that was set with North Carolina in the 2020 CBS Sports Classic. It was Ohio State versus North Carolina, Kentucky versus UCLA. They switched the teams around and pit Ohio State against North Carolina because those two conferences' COVID protocols, Ohio State and UCLA, those two conferences' COVID protocols more align than the ACC and Big Ten. And so it's like, here's an instance where do you need overarching rules? And this is something NCAA didn't want to get involved in at all with football. They're like, no. Basketball is doing the same thing where it's just, we'll just leave it up to the conferences. The NCAA tournament is definitely going to have to do something. You would think to have some sort of a rule, but it's the Big Ten would. It is interesting that they've talked about that, or Gene Smith, Ryan Day have talked about how the Big Ten is looking at the rule. Ryan Day on his radio show today, I believe, said, well, it's a rule about Big Ten play, the 21 days. It's a rule about Big Ten play, but in football, all they have done is played Big Ten teams, and that's the rule for every other sport as well. So I don't know that it's just about Big Ten play. And even if it is just about Big Ten play, there's no other rule out there for the Big Ten. So this is the rule. It's not like, well, if you're playing, Dixie State, then anybody with COVID can go play. There's no rules, and no, that's not the case. And so the Big Ten here has a chance to, I guess, get with the times, and knowing that this is only like a 6-month, 10-month thing where we're still learning stuff every day. But the stuff that we have learned, and the reason for that third week is the hard issue and getting players back up to speed in practice. And the hard issues haven't necessarily been there like they thought. That was originally one of the reasons why the Big Ten shut down completely. And, everybody does heart testing. They do all of that stuff. And other conferences are fine with the 10 days because the CDC is fine with the 10 days. And so the Big Ten should as well, if it's about the players and it's about the student-athlete experience, when you take like an extra week from them, an extra 11 days, that can be for, college basketball player, that could be like 3 or 4 or 5 games. For college football player, that could be 2 games, 3 games, as we've seen with the 21 days. And this year, that's a lot. That's a quarter of a season, half of a season right now for Ohio State. And Gene Smith is looking into it, is talking to the Big Ten. This isn't just an AD vote, though. This is going to be involving some of the medical people, and Dr. Jim Borchers, the Ohio State team doctor, would be a part of that, I assume, because he's the main medical guy that helped get the Big Ten back. So you would think if they wanted to do it, they could. I just don't know if they want to.
Yeah, and my assumption is if Gene Smith is out there pushing this, that means Dr. Borchers is probably on board, because Gene Smith does not seem like he'd be, stiff arming Dr. Borchers. Like, you don't.
Dr. Schmachter.
You go off here. It's football time, man. Like that doesn't seem like that.
Are you even a real doctor? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that probably does not seem like the way that probably has gone. So that would lead me to believe that Dr. Borchers is probably on the same page there and supporting it. And if he is, like, he's the guy who is the person who's speaking for the whole league in terms of like, here's what's safe to do. So if he thinks it's safe, then I'm not sure what the argument against it would be. Now, let me just prepare you. I don't want to spoil anything, but if the Big Ten does this and changes to exactly what the same rule that everyone else is going under, here's what people are going to say. They are going to say that this is the Big Ten prioritizing Ohio State winning a national championship over the safety of its players. Now, you, being a person with a fully functioning frontal cortex, can probably puzzle out why that's stupid. Like, if it's dangerous for Ohio State to do this, why is it not dangerous for other conferences? And the answer is, well, the other conferences didn't change their rules. And you, again, probably not being literally the stupidest person on earth, can figure out that that's absolute nonsense. That will have no impact on whether that actually is brought out as an objection if this happens. I'm just letting you know that's what's going to happen, because I have been on the internet and I can tell you there's some dumb out there, and that is what's going to happen if this rule gets changed.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember when Ryan Day and Scott Frost were fighting to get the season going, and national writers were ripping them for it. And it's like, I remember tweeting, like, why aren't you ripping Dabo? Why aren't you ripping Nick Saban? Why aren't you ripping Brian Kelly? All of these coaches that are playing this season, rather than saying, you know what, for the safety's sake, we're not going to play. No, they're all willing to play. They all want to play. They're all going forward playing. But it's just the two coaches that really want to play and can't that we're getting the heat. And yes, whichever way, just like the changing of the 6-game rule, the columnists have their sides. They've got 2 columns written, and they've got a column written if the Big Ten does change the rule. They've got a column if the Big Ten doesn't. And I think they want to run the one where the Big Ten does change the rule, because then it's like you can really stick it to them. But I don't know. You're right about the Gene and Dr. Jim Borchers being on the same page. And if the main medical guy is for it, and also the CDC.
But counterpoint, what does the CDC know about controlling disease?
True. They do know about centers.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ask them about Robert Parrish, but do not ask them about, yes.
What do you guys think about the chief? Well,
Ooh, Tony?
Founder. No. Don't you take that back. I'm gonna end this show right now, Tom.
Don't make me turn this show around.
Even though you're the one controlling it, I'll just close my camera and you'll just hear me ranting and stuff. And can't believe I walked into the chief. Never again. Never. Don't talk Boston Celtics basketball on this show. We talk Toledo Rockets and Toledo Walleye hockey
and Toledo Mud Hens
and the Mud Hens. I when I was young, to talk about the Mud Hens, when I would go to the Mud Hens game, that was about the time where like Kent Herbeck and Kirby Puckett were in Toledo. This is when Toledo was
Twins affiliate.
Exactly. So, we got to see some Gary Gaetti, probably. Maybe not Gaetti. I'm not that old. But, you get some baseball signed and some miniature bats. But, Tom, do you think the rule gets changed?
My guess is no. I think when in doubt, bet on inertia. Because sitting on this and just saying, well, we're not totally comfortable and to change it, we think putting safety ahead of everything else is the right thing to do. Like that's just a very easy and smug press release you can put out or leak to friendly media. And, and then you're the good guy who cares about the children, and you are not the people who are putting winning above all else. And my assumption is that this doesn't get changed, and that it ends up hamstringing Ohio State in the semifinals in some way. That just seems like exactly the way this season probably needs to play out in order to have the universe kind of stay in one piece.
Yeah. As I was writing that thing today and reminding myself of how the Big Ten was going to start in January, and you're just looking at the way everybody in the Big Ten is just limping to the finish line. It's like, I don't even want to do this anymore. And just imagining like if there was no fall season, the January season would be getting going, in a couple of weeks. And it's like, well, would they even be trying? And then they would be like, you know what? We'll try it in March. And the coach would be like, no, we can't do that. And so you would have missed the entire season basically, because there just wouldn't have been time. And that's the Big Ten for you. Yeah.
No. And I think there's a very compelling case to be made that the Big Ten has done literally exactly the wrong thing at about 10 to 12 different points during this fall. Going from, canceling your non-conference games without consulting anyone else and ticking everyone else off, making your schedule and then canceling the season 6 days later, deciding you're not going to play during September and October when things are pretty okay everywhere. And then as soon as it starts to get cold and people all have to go back inside, that's when you start the season, and you do it in a way that there's no bye weeks in there built in. There's no flexibility at all. You're putting your biggest games right at the end. So if like one thing goes wrong, it gets canceled and they don't get played. I mean, there are multiple like huge rivalries in the Big Ten that are not getting played this year. It's not just Ohio State, Michigan. It's Indiana, Purdue, because it was the last week of the season and it got canceled. And then they went, aha, we'll make it up 1 week later. It's like, well, guess what? Nothing. Everything didn't magically get better 1 week later. Surprise. There have been some decisions made this year. I think a neutral observer going back and looking at those decisions would probably judge them not super favorably, I think, is in virtually all cases. That doesn't mean they were done for the wrong reasons. It doesn't mean that they weren't done by people who honestly thought they were the best move at the time. It has not played out that way. And it turns out that those decisions were not the right decisions. And it's too bad. I think this could have been a very different season if they had stuck with that initial plan. And, you start on September 5th and you get through, and October 24th, when there was supposed to be the Ohio State Michigan game, the first time they were supposed to play, that everything was fine on October 24th. Everyone played their games on October 24th. That's it. It's too bad they didn't stick with that one, because all the conferences that have gone through and stuck with those initial plans have by and large been okay. They've missed games here and there, but they have not had things just completely crater like they have at the end of the Big Ten season this year.
I promise you, Tom, Ohio State wanted nothing of the October 24th Joe Milton. Now October 31st, maybe. The 24th Milton, no.
Yes. Now, would that have just been week 1 Joe Milton, or was it specifically that date? The entire universe has come together on that date to have the cloud shine. I think whenever he played Minnesota, he was going to look like that, and then whenever he played anyone who was not Minnesota, he was going to not look like that.
You're talking about the Big Ten and making all of these wrong moves. It's just like I'm just picturing like Kevin Warren with 2 big buckets of paint, and he was walking out on the deck. I'm going to paint my deck, and he starts painting, and somebody's like, might want to come from the other angle. You're going to start painting yourself in a corner. No. I'll do that. I'll be fine. And he just keeps painting backwards and painting himself, like further and further. Hey, Kevin, getting into that corner. No. You don't know what you're talking about. This is the
point at which he's pointing at the wall behind him. Look at all the pieces of paper and frames.
I know what I'm doing. Look at that wall. And then eventually, there's nothing there. And you know what? Let's just not paint anymore. No more painting. Let's not revisit this because it's embarrassing.
And the ACC hiring Jim Phillips, who's the Northwestern AD, who was the sort of presumptive front runner to be the Big Ten commissioner, replacing Jim Delaney. Boy, that's going to be an interesting juxtaposition for the next 10, 20 years, whatever, what that could have been. And what is the trajectory of the Big Ten versus the trajectory of the ACC over that span? There's that. I think this might have been a little bit of a different year with a different commissioner. I think it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with the ACC now, with Phillips in control. What happens to the Big Ten right now with Warren in control? And again, this is not a dictatorship. The commissioner does not run the entire show. It is not a 1-0 vote on this stuff. But I do wonder what things would have looked like with Jim Phillips in control this year.
Tom, will never know. Let's talk a little football, because it is championship week and there are conference championships to be won. First Friday night, Oregon somehow made it to the Pac-12 championship by rule of Washington not being able to, or
Yes, Washington had coronavirus, so they couldn't play. So then Oregon got to take one step to the left. It's like the groom has ducked out on the wedding, so then the best man just takes one step to the right, and congratulations, now you're getting married. Like, all right, well.
No, I think that's like Bible times when if the husband died, then the brother had to marry his husband's wife or something like that. This is that.
Yes. So anyway, the wedding of Oregon and USC.
I know how this is going to go, Tom. Mm-hmm. Oregon is going to be up early by a couple touchdowns, and they're going to continue to play well. And then for who knows why, USC is going to come back in the final minutes, take a lead, and it's like, what in the world? But then, of course, I think this is finally the week where the magic runs out. And it's not real magic. It's like magic store magic. It's like, yeah, I can see all of the tricks, and I know that the top hat has a false bottom. Okay, that's USC. And although I don't have any faith in Oregon either, so maybe USC does win this, but I don't see USC getting into the top 4, if that's your question, Tom.
No, that is definitely not my question. I was looking at this game and it was like, yeah, I don't really have a lot of faith in USC, but you look at Oregon and it's like, well, I don't have a lot of faith in Oregon. These might just be two teams that aren't very good, and USC's favored. It opened at 3.5. USC's now favored by 3. USC's a home team, so you get 3 points for being the home team. So that's Vegas kind of throwing its hands up in the air and going, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So yeah, sure. I guess I don't know. I mean, sure, take the home team, but that's about the extent of my thoughts on it. Like, you have seen the people pushing the idea that USC should be much higher. It's like, because they haven't lost. Like, okay, that was a compelling case for Ohio State in 2002 when they did it for 13 games in a row. This is 5 games. Like, this is like taking Ohio State in early October that year and going, aha, 5 times.
But without the Texas Tech and Washington State big wins, and just wins against your Kent State win and your Illinois overtime win, and that stuff. And USC has nothing.
Yeah, and the equivalent of Ohio State blowing out Kent State is USC when they played Arizona this year, and that game came down to literally the last minute. So yeah, I don't really see that argument.
I did. I don't know if you saw it on the Ask Insiders message board, on our new message board. I let you know that what you wrote about USC was pretty much exactly what Gary Barta said Tuesday night. Like, yeah, they're kind of trashy, is basically what he said.
Look at me. I'm on the committee now. Yeah. All of the Marriott points. Can't wait.
Do we want to talk about Texas A&M and Tennessee? Because this is a game to me that Texas A&M could lose, because, Tom, it is a game. And Tennessee is a team-ish, and 14-point line. This would be a hilarious loss for Texas A&M, and one that they've you can get in for just $35. That's not good for Tennessee, coach.
I was going to say that seems high, honestly. Like, Tennessee's just been real bad this year, like real bad. And I'm going to pull up their schedule here, because this is one of these schools that I haven't even had to really think about recently. So I really honestly couldn't tell you exactly how they've done. They started 2-0. Yeah, they started 2-0, right? And then lost
everything except for last week.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, they beat, Vanderbilt last week, which, I mean, that's a thing you can do.
A head coachless Vanderbilt.
A head coachless Vanderbilt. Yeah, lost to Florida before that, lost at Auburn before that, lost to Arkansas before that, lost to Alabama before that, lost to Kentucky before that, lost to Georgia before that. Like, I mean, this is a Tennessee team that is probably close-ish to firing its coach. I think he's probably going to survive because they don't want to pay the buyout.
Yeah, what's that buyout? Andy Staples wrote about it today, but I didn't look at it.
Yeah, this is only his 3rd year, Pruitt, I believe. So it's probably still fairly substantial. And I don't know that they have a home run replacement. So they may just keep him for another year.
Greg Schiano?
Yeah, that would be a thing. I wonder if they go for Billy Napier out of Louisiana or someone like that. Like, that would make sense. But yeah, I think Pruitt's got one more year there. But yeah, I don't see Tennessee having much life here. I mean, they're a 14-point home underdog, so maybe they keep it kind of close. But yeah, I am wildly unimpressed with Texas A&M this year. But I also think that you can be not super impressive and also beat Tennessee on the road by
2 touchdowns,
3 scores. Yeah.
So let's go to the Big 12 championship game going on at the same time as the Big 10 championship game. Number 10 Oklahoma at number 6 not at, and against number 6 Iowa State in Jerry World. Oklahoma 5.5-point favorite, despite the Cyclones being the team that is actually playing for a berth in the college football playoffs, albeit unlikely. We have seen late movement in the past before, and maybe this would be one of those weeks. It would probably take a Florida win. No,
it takes an Alabama win. It takes an Alabama win, a probably decisive Notre Dame win. Yeah. Either a Northwestern win over Ohio State, or Notre Dame beats Clemson real decisively, and Texas A&M looks terrible against Tennessee, or maybe loses to Tennessee, and then Iowa State wins. And any combination of those, like if Ohio State loses, but if Ohio State loses, that opens up a spot. And so it's either Texas A&M or Iowa State probably at that point. So
you have to see.
We're not in the realm of like likely events here, but it's possible.
But this is not 2007, people. I mean, come on, get with it. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. Let's go to the ACC championship game. Number 3 Clemson at number 2 Notre Dame. I was on YouTube with Mark Rogers and Steve Hellwagon and Kevin Noon today. Nooner was adamant that Clemson is just going to destroy Notre Dame. In fact, he used the word assassinate, which
that implies Notre Dame is important. I'm not sure I'm willing to.
Yeah, exactly. This is not an assassination. You can just say murder. Kill, leave on the street, dying. This doesn't rise to the level of an assassination. Nobody has been hired here. This is just a thing where you go and beat somebody up. Yeah,
I think everyone points to that Notre Dame win over Clemson the first time. Like, look, they have the best win of the season. It's like, okay, that game was at home. Clemson did not have Trevor Lawrence. They were missing 3 defensive starters, which might be even more important than Trevor Lawrence. And then the game went into overtime, and then they won. It's like, okay, you can stack those 5 things. Okay, so home field, there goes 3 points. Okay, Trevor Lawrence. How many points is Trevor Lawrence worth this year? I mean, DJ Uiagalelei? I think I did that right. I mean, how many points is Lawrence worth over DJ? I mean, a touchdown? 10? Okay, 3 defensive.
Fair.
Yeah, 3 defensive starters. How many points are 3 defensive starters worth?
3 to 10?
Touchdown. Okay, there's 17 points. Okay, and it was tied after regulation. Okay,
17-point win.
I'm not sure if that's an assassination, but it's I think Clemson could win this game by double digits, and I look at the 10.5-point spread, and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably take Clemson there. I think that they're going to beat Notre Dame, but not beat Notre Dame so badly that Notre Dame gets knocked out of the playoff. I think they're going to beat Notre Dame badly enough that it's Clemson, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and Alabama just annihilating Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, as is tradition. Finally, 2021 will start off with the refreshing normalcy of Notre Dame just absolutely getting rubbed up, just dragged around the field in a college football playoff semifinal. It'll be a delightful dose of normalcy.
Nature is returning as Notre Dame gets wiped off the face of the playoffs. And the thing is, I don't know who should be in ahead of them, because I don't want to see Notre Dame in the playoffs, but it's like, do you want to see Texas A&M? No. Would Iowa State be any different? I don't think so.
Iowa State would be, at least there would be some novelty to the fact that Iowa State's in the playoff, and it'd be like, wow, this is crazy. Good for them. What an awesome moment for this. Oh no, they're down 17 points and they're at the coin toss. Like, how did that happen? Like that, but it would be, I mean, like I'm ready for something else. Like I'm ready for this was the year that it was just like the first time Oklahoma lost. It was like, thank goodness we don't have to watch that crap in the playoffs anymore. And yeah, like there are years when there are 5, 6 good teams. I think this is a year that there's like 3.5 good teams, and Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and then Notre Dame's fine. Notre Dame's better than Notre Dame has been. They won't lose by, if they were playing Ohio State or Clemson, they wouldn't lose by 4 touchdowns. They might lose by 4 touchdowns to Alabama, but I don't think they're going to lose by 4 touchdowns to Ohio State or Clemson if they end up playing them. But I don't think they're going to play them. I think they're going to play Alabama, and I think they're going to get annihilated again.
Yeah, and as much as I've been impressed by Ian Book this year, it's not been the best schedule, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. And I'm not sure how much of that game we will get to see in between the working. I'm sure we'll have laptops open to it, but will we be watching it?
Yeah, even if I feel extremely confident it's going to be Ohio State Clemson in the Rose Bowl, I don't know what state we'll be in for that. This is going to be there's a lot of question marks here.
Yeah. Do you have any strong feelings about Tulsa and Cincinnati? That's interesting to me in the AAC championship game because Cincinnati is fighting to stay undefeated. They keep moving back in the rankings for not playing, and I guess I think as somebody else said, they would be better off losing because losing at least either you stay put or you move up, and losing here against a ranked team, Tulsa, that's a good loss. So maybe get more credit for a loss than a win here. But Cincinnati has no shot at the playoffs. The committee has ruled them ineligible because they are not a Power 5 team. So it's like I do wonder. Yes, they're going to want to obviously win and finish undefeated. I do wonder if there's a little bit of wind taken out of their sails, or if it's going to be like a 2012 Ohio State team where it's like, well, we're just playing for each other now.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, just if people don't remember, the last time Ohio State, it feels like Ohio State hasn't played in a million years. Ohio State has played one game since November 21st. That was the day Ohio State played Indiana. That was also the day Cincinnati played UCF. Ohio State has played one game since then, and it's like, geez, Ohio State hasn't played in forever. Cincinnati has not played at all in that span. That's tough. And at that point, it's like, okay, how are they going to come out in this game? Are they going to come out like fired up and ready to go? And I mean, Ohio State, when they have missed games, have come out and just absolutely drubbed people at the start of the next game. Maybe that's how Cincinnati comes out. That's how Wisconsin came out against Michigan. Wisconsin hadn't played in a couple weeks, and I think we were both kind of going like, I don't know, like what do you expect out of them? And then they came out and beat Michigan 49-11 or whatever it was. So you can come out of basically a college football coma. Basically, they've been in for the last month, and then you can come out of that and just absolutely walk onto the field and just kill whoever you're playing. But I don't think that's a guarantee. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to me. But I think what's more interesting is like, who does Cincinnati get if they win this? Who does Cincinnati get in the Peach Bowl or Cotton Bowl or whatever? And if it's like Cincinnati A&M, like I'd be interested in that game. Like I'd be interested in that game because I think A&M might not score a whole lot of points, and then all of a sudden that game's 17-13 in the fourth quarter, and it's like, oh man,
that would be awesome for Luke Fickell and Marcus Freeman and all of those players.
Yeah,
to finish undefeated.
It'd also be a great measure if bowl games are a good measure of conference strength. That would be that's the one where we would find out, like, is it or is this just a mere exhibition?
That would not be a good a measure unless A&M wins it. Obviously,
obviously, yes.
Speaking of schedule strength and conference strength, the SEC championship game, 8 p.m. CBS. Number 1 Alabama, number 7 Florida. Alabama favored by 17. Here's a problem that I always have when it comes to Alabama and the SEC championship game. There's always a lot going on that day, and there's always like, yeah, maybe this is the day somebody gets Alabama. And Tom, let me finish. And
Ron Howard narrator voice. It is not the day someone gets Alabama. Go on. Yes.
And early on, it might be close, but then before too long, the points just get poured on, and you realize, well, I guess this is not the week. And I know Florida, a lot of people are down on them. A lot of people outside of the committee are down in Florida for losing to LSU. But I will remind you that was a road game. It was against an opponent that was difficult. And I don't care if they had a losing record. That just means they've played a lot of good teams. And when you play a team that's played a lot of good teams and you play a lot of games, Tom, these are all quality things to keep in mind. So I don't think Florida has no shot. I do think they have a shot. However, there are 3 quarters outside of where they have that shot in the first quarter. So that's where things get tricky. It's that second and third and that fourth quarter where things are going to be a little wonky. And we'll probably be getting home right around the second half of this game ish, and I'm hoping there's something to watch. I'm not particularly expecting something good to watch.
Yeah, I don't think this is probably going to be super competitive into the second half. Alabama, do you know the last time Alabama lost a SEC championship game?
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, 2008, Florida 31, Alabama 20. And then after that, the next year they came out and beat Florida by 19. 2012, they beat Georgia by 4. 2014, they beat Missouri by 29. 2015, they beat Florida by 14. 2016, they beat Florida by 39. 2018, they beat Georgia by 7. I mean, it's just the 2008 game was not only the last time Alabama lost the SEC, it is also the last time these Florida Gators won the SEC. So
they're due.
It's that's one interpretation. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Florida doesn't run the ball. Like, it's not that Florida can't run the ball in this game. It's that Florida doesn't run the ball. Like, they're not going to be able to run the ball in this game, but they just don't run the ball really at all. So then you're one dimensional. You know who's pretty good at coaching up a secondary when you're one dimensional, and who has some pretty good pass rushers who are probably going to eat your quarterback alive if you're real predictable and one dimensional? That'd be Alabama. You know who's not real good at stopping the run? Florida. You know who's got a real good running back?
Yeah.
Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah. It's
Is that right?
This just seems like this might be one of those games where Alabama comes in and it's 28-3 at the half, and then it finishes 35-17 or something, but it's like, 10 minutes left in the second quarter. It's like, all right, well, the committee might as well just release the rankings now, because there is no point in the last 2.5 quarters of this game.
Yeah, the over-under is 74, so you're looking at like a 45-28 game, and it's like, well, can Florida hold Alabama to 45? I guess it just depends on what Alabama wants to do. And over-under on Devontae Smith touchdowns, Tom, I'm going to set at 2.5.
I'm going to say under, because I think they run the ball. I think Najee Harris just, this feels like a Najee Harris for 211 yards and 4 touchdowns kind of game.
And the reason I couldn't go 1.5 is because then you just go over. That's easy. Over.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 2, 1 or 2 is a reasonable question, but yeah, I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball. They don't have to throw the ball. I don't think they're going to throw the ball, but this is one of these games where they control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Florida gets real predictable. They have to throw all the time. Alabama, has 3 interceptions and runs 1 back for touchdown. And, this could get completely out of hand. Completely out of hand. So,
I do want to see what Kyle Trask can do against these guys and what kind of shootout they can get into.
Yeah, anytime you can go from a Bo Pelini defense to a Nick Saban defense in the span of a week, that's a real nice, easy step up after you've failed at the yes, we lost to Glass Joe, but here I have the code to get right to Tyson. Let's see how this goes.
It's like racing on 270 and then going and racing on the brick streets of Sherman Village. This is not nearly as smooth. And it's like, well, things didn't go so smooth for you on 270 either, because that was LSU and they beat you. Tom, if you have a Heisman vote and you can only vote for guys from Alabama, of course, who you're giving it to? I'm going with Devontae Smith.
I'll go with Devontae Smith, just so it's not a freaking quarterback again. And again, for those who are new to the show, our editorial position is the Heisman Trophy is really deeply stupid and the most overrated award in all of sports, because it's supposed to go to the most outstanding player in college football, and instead it always goes to the quarterback from a team that is ranked in the top 5. There are awards for quarterbacks. The Heisman is not supposed to be, yes, the Heisman is not pictured throwing the football, because it's not supposed to specifically be a quarterback award. And yet, so yeah, it's just, which SEC quarterback that's put up big numbers is going to be this time? I don't know. Could be anyone.
Could be anyone. Connor Bazelak from Missouri.
Could be. Who's to say? He has played a number of SEC teams, so that's a lot of quality losses on that resume. Yeah, I think DeVonta Smith is the most outstanding player in college football this year.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty good case to be made
I
for
think
that.
he might win it.
Yeah, I mean, and Kyle Pitts kind of fell off after that ludicrous start. He would have been like give the Heisman to a tight end. Like, even if he doesn't deserve it, like, just do it for the novelty of it, because it's real boring otherwise. So yeah, I'd be fine with DeVonta Smith winning it, but whatever.
Tom, your attitude about the most overrated individual award is just it's beneath you, Tom. This is not the Tom Orr I know, sir. Anything else? You got something to say? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to suggest that we preview the Ohio State game.
Didn't we do that?
No.
We did it at the outset of the show.
Oh.
Yeah. Remember? Were you here?
Yeah. All right. I guess.
For like 10 minutes?
We didn't do it. We didn't do it in this. Did we pick against the spread? No. Yeah, we gave our picks.
Yes,
yeah.
we did.
All right. So fine. Tony, I'm going to counterpoint. It's been a long week. I've done a bunch of podcasts. I've spent a lot of time talking about college football and podcasts this week. And frankly, I may have thought that was a different show. I don't know. I'm not here to talk about the past. Instead, let's talk about the future, such as Friday's Morning Scoop, when I got to talk to
what you will get to.
Well, I mean, I already did, but it's fine. You'll get to hear it soon. One of my favorite guests. I do not break glass in case of emergency very often on this one. Want to save it for when we really need it. Day before college football championship weekend, 2 days before college football playoff selection. When you want to preview something, Tony, in the sport of college football, what name do you think when you think college football preview?
Phil Steele.
Yes, correct. Tony, you'll never guess who was on the podcast on Friday morning.
Bill Bender.
Bender wasn't available, so I got Phil Steele instead. Yes, no, yeah. Phil Steele is. I normally I plan these shows out like a day in advance, whatever. I emailed Phil's guy like last week. I'm like, I would just love to get Phil on the show any day next week. I'm sure it is a crazy week for him. I'm sure everyone wants him on the show this week. Let me know when he's available. I will take 15 minutes anytime he can give it to me next week. Phil Steele's on the show on Friday morning. It is a fantastic conversation. You look so amused by this. It's exciting. I get to do a podcast with someone who's smart and knows about football. Like I don't get to do this every day. First Ross yesterday, Phil today. No, it's great. No, so it was a fantastic conversation. We talked about Big Ten championship game, ACC championship game, SEC championship game. Where does Ohio State stand? Is there a scenario where Ohio State gets left out even if they win? If you have the crazy scenario that we talked about where, Notre Dame wins, Ohio State wins, Alabama wins, and then it's like, and then what? Who gets that last spot? Is it Clemson? Is it Texas A&M? Is it Iowa State? Is it someone else? So lots of fun stuff. And I will say the same thing I say every time I have Phil on the podcast. That guy can just talk about college football. It's just like you throw out anything, any question you want, and it's just, he has stats on line yards, and they've held these teams that they play to 90 yards less per game than average on the ground. It's like, how do you just where did you pull that from? I don't understand. Yeah, no, it's he is a wealth of knowledge. Always a fantastic conversation. So that will drop a little later Thursday night. That'll be up. I always drop those Thursday night on YouTube and your podcast platform of choice. So that's worth checking out for the morning scoop.
Is he still feeling good about Texas A&M?
Yeah, I mean, he thinks Texas A&M, if Texas A&M wins reasonably big over Tennessee, and he thinks they probably will, he thinks they might be the team that gets in. So,
I mean, he told you that when he was on the show like 6 weeks ago, like, hey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, but I think the last time I had him on was kind of previewing the Ohio State season, like right before the Big Ten started. And I mean, this is one of these things, like when everyone kind of went like, Texas A&M, what? And it's like, here they are, number 5 in the play. Like, all right, well,
expert Texas A&M. What?
It turns out the guy who has been ranked the most accurate college football preview magazine guy for like 30 years in a row, turns out he may know something about football. I got to tell you, didn't see that coming.
Who could have possibly known? All right, I think that'll do it then. I think we've got it covered. Thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for watching. make sure to check out BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a new looking website. We have a brand new message board. Now, there have been some issues in terms of getting everybody moved over to the new site. User experience has not been optimal for everybody, but the site is there. Either keep trying or give it a little bit more time before it finally reaches you. But it is there. If you are having issues, go ahead and send a message to me or Tom or Mark Givler or any of us, and we'll do what we can to help you out. But it's nice and it's shiny. And now with an even better experience inside that message board, I would go ahead and recommend that if you are not yet a member, now might be a good time because there's still plenty of stuff going on, and there are still another month and a half, 2 months until signing day, the second signing day, where there's still going to be some action going on and plenty of stuff to keep an eye on. And then, Tom, spring football is like 1st of March.
Yeah, somehow we just finished the Big Ten regular season, and all of a sudden spring football is like 8 weeks away. It's like, what? What has happened to time? I don't understand any of this.
Time only exists from May until like August. That is the only part where there's time. Everything else is football season.
Yeah, this is everything feels like 12 months. May to August feels like about 9 of those months, and then the rest of the year is just so compressed, and we're so crazy busy the whole time. It's like, wasn't it Halloween like 7 days ago? Like, I don't understand how it's almost Christmas, but that's all right. It is in both the Christmas and college football sense, it is the most wonderful time of the year.
Absolutely. So thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you guys Friday in Indianapolis.